Channel Neat viewers, welcome to another episode on Channel Neat. So in our previous episode, we talked about serial killing, how to potentially identify a serial killer, and what are some of the characteristics of a serial killer. So in this episode, we're going to talk about serial killers in Singapore. Before we even move on to the topic, I must have a disclaimer over here. We're going to talk about certain crimes in this episode, and this might make some people uncomfortable. And if you are a family member or friend of a victim of a serial killing, please do not continue to watch from here. Some of the viewers may have clicked onto this link because they were very curious. They were saying, who is this serial killer in Singapore? Singapore got serial killer meh? The answer is no, don't have. But there are cases of serial killers all around Asia. So in Hong Kong, there were 2 known serial killers before. Even in Malaysia, there were serial killers before. In Hong Kong, a taxi driver by the name of Lam Guo Wen killed 4 women in the 1980s, making him the first serial killer of Hong Kong. Then in the early 1990s, up to 1993, a Hong Kong man by the name of Lam Guo Wei raped 10 women and killed 3 in the process. In 1995 and 1996, a Malaysian Chinese man by the name of Lee Chao Ming robbed and raped numerous women and killed 5 of these victims. All these were considered cases of serial killing because there were at least 3 victims and it happened over a significant period of time. Now, a point to note is most of these cases of serial killing happened before the year 2000. And of course, based on our definition of serial killing, which you can find on our previous episode, if you go on a mass killing spree, mass shooting spree at a shopping mall or in a school, killing 16 people at one go, that is not considered serial killing. And thank goodness, there is no known serial killers in Singapore. But before we even go to that, we must mention 2 men that almost qualify as serial killers in Singapore, if not because they were caught. If any one of you is curious enough to type serial killers in Singapore under Google search, on the first page, you're going to get this, John Martin Scripps. John Martin Scripps is in Britain who has been known to kill tourists. And one of his killing spree happened in Singapore. However, we will not consider him as a serial killer in Singapore because he is not Singaporean. So the 2 different men that we're going to talk about are Singaporean. The first one is Adrian Lim. So some of you might have known Adrian Lim. He's famous for what we call the Toa Payoh ritual murders. This happened in the year 1981. He and 2 other women together lured 2 children to their home and killed them. And the 2 killings happened within the span of 2 weeks. If not because he was caught by the police for the second murder, he might have committed the third. And what that means is, if he was successful, he would have been listed as a serial killer. In the year 2010, there is a Singaporean man by the name of So Wee Kian. So at that point in time, he was 23 years old. He was Singapore's serial slasher. So he had slashed 4 different women and killed 1 in the process of his slashing. And had he not been caught, he would probably go on killing more people. Anyway, any crime that involves the killing of another human being is really gruesome. So if you want to know more details, then go and read on your own. I mentioned earlier that in Singapore, it is very unlikely there will ever be a serial killer. Why? Because it is very hard to fulfill the criterion of having to kill 3 or more people within a dispersed time period. There are a few reasons why I say so. One is, the police in Singapore is now too efficient. Back in the 1980s and 1990s, if there had been a case of serial killer in Singapore, it might be still possible because the police might take some time to figure out who this person is. But now, in the year 2020, this is almost impossible. Besides having a very efficient police force in Singapore, another factor that does not favor the emergence of a serial killer in Singapore is we are living too close together. We are usually living mostly in HDB flats, in condos. There's no land for you to bury your victims. There's no place you can hide a victim. The third factor is we live in Singapore where everybody seems to know everybody else. There are no people that seem to be living a non-existence type of existence. But in America, where serial killing is very common, there are a lot of runaways, there are a lot of prostitutes, and these tend to be the victims of serial killing. And when they disappear, nobody is bothered. Nobody knows because they have the habit of not reporting themselves. So in Singapore, once a person disappears because the person is killed, soon the police will be alerted, and when that happens, immediately action will be taken. It's just a matter of time, this person will be caught. The fourth factor that we talk about here is DNA. Technology has improved so much that now, if you just drop a strand of your hair, just lose a drip of your blood, you can be identified if you are a suspect. Finally, another factor that does not favor the emergence of a serial killer in Singapore is that there are too many surveillance cameras in Singapore. So almost everywhere you go, every HDB flat, every road junction, there are surveillance cameras. If you kill somebody and you want to transport the body away, it makes it very hard for you to figure out unless you have planned your route very well. But even so, you still can be caught. Of course, low crime doesn't mean no crime, but we still live in a very safe country, which is something to be thankful for. In one of my later episodes, I'll be talking about the MBTI type that may be most associated to psychopathic tendencies, including serial killing. If you have enjoyed episodes like this, do subscribe if you have not subscribed, so that we can continue to add value to you. And before I sign off, I want to have another disclaimer. I said that it is unlikely that there will be a serial killer in Singapore, but that does not mean that you might not be a victim of his first killing. It's just that he will not progress to be killing the second or third person because he is very likely to get caught. You can still be the first person to be killed. And in Singapore, every year, year after year, there are still cases of culpable homicide or manslaughter. So please everybody, take care of yourself and stay positive. And I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye!